Loneliness is not an emotion. That framing, that it's something you feel, something to push through, something to manage with mindset, is one of the most damaging misconceptions in modern health science. Loneliness is a biological threat, and your body responds to it the same way it responds to a physical injury. Research from Brigham Young University, one of the most cited studies in modern epidemiology, found that loneliness and social isolation increase the risk of early death by 26 to 32%, depending on how isolation is measured. That is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, every day, and it's been replicated across dozens of studies involving millions of people. But the mortality statistic is not even the most important part. What's happening inside your body, to your brain, your immune system, your cortisol, your ability to think and focus and recover. That's what nobody is talking about. And that's what this video is about. To understand why loneliness is a biological threat, you need to understand where it came from. Loneliness is not a modern problem. It is an ancient survival signal. For most of human history, being separated from your social group was genuinely life-threatening. A lone human on the savannah faced predators, starvation, and exposure. The pain of loneliness evolved as a biological alarm, the same way physical pain alerts you to injury. It was designed to motivate you to reconnect with your group before isolation killed you. The neuroscientist John Cacioppo, who spent decades studying loneliness at the University of Chicago, called this the evolutionary theory of loneliness. His work showed that loneliness initiates a highly conserved biological response that is adaptive in the short term. It sharpens your threat detection, makes you alert to danger, and prepares your body for potential physical harm. The problem is that this response was designed for acute, temporary isolation, not the chronic, low-grade loneliness that now defines modern life. When loneliness becomes chronic, that same biological survival response, the heightened threat detection, the inflammatory preparation, the cortisol elevation, runs continuously, and a survival system designed to run for days becomes a disease when it runs for months and years. Here is exactly what chronic loneliness does to your body, because this is where it stops being a social problem and becomes a performance problem. Effect 1. It activates your immune system against you. When your brain perceives social threat, which is what loneliness is, it triggers a specific immune response originally designed to prepare for physical injury. Researchers call this the conserved transcriptional response to adversity. Your body upregulates genes associated with inflammation and simultaneously downregulates genes associated with antiviral defense. In plain language, your immune system shifts from protecting you against viruses and disease to preparing for wounds that never come. Chronic loneliness is associated with higher rates of cardiovascular disease, faster progression of cancer, and significantly higher susceptibility to infection, not as a correlation, as a mechanism. Effect 2. It chronically elevates your cortisol. We covered cortisol in this series. It's the master switch running your sleep, your focus, your dopamine system, and your inflammatory response. Loneliness activates your HPA axis, the same system that governs cortisol, and keeps it elevated. A lonely person is running the same chronic cortisol dysregulation as someone under severe occupational stress. The brain cannot distinguish between the threat of social isolation and the threat of physical danger. Both activate the same system. Both produce the same cortisol response, which means everything we discussed about chronic cortisol, the cognitive decline, the sleep destruction, the dopamine suppression, is happening to chronically lonely people around the clock. Comment lonely below if any of these 4 effects resonated with something you've been feeling without being able to name it. I want to know. Effect 3. It physically changes your brain's reward system. Research published in peer-reviewed neuroscience journals shows that loneliness alters neural circuits in the regions responsible for reward processing. Specifically, the areas that should activate when something positive happens become less responsive over time. This is called anhedonia, the reduced ability to feel pleasure or satisfaction. It's the same mechanism through which chronic stress suppresses the liking system we discussed in the dopamine video. A chronically lonely person is not simply sad. Their brain has been physically altered to be less capable of experiencing reward, which makes reconnection feel harder, motivation feel lower, and recovery feel impossible. The isolation becomes self-reinforcing. Effect 4. It shrinks your hippocampus and accelerates cognitive decline. Research consistently links loneliness with smaller hippocampal volumes, the hippocampus being the brain region most critical for memory, learning, and spatial navigation. Chronic loneliness is associated with faster cognitive decline and significantly elevated risk of dementia. This is not distant. It is accumulating now, in proportion to how long the loneliness has been present. Here is the reframe that changes how you think about this. Loneliness is not a social problem. It is a performance problem, a biological infrastructure problem. A person running on chronic loneliness is operating with a dysregulated cortisol curve, a suppressed dopamine reward system, a compromised immune response, reduced hippocampal function, and heightened threat sensitivity in every social interaction. They are not simply unhappy. They are biologically impaired, in exactly the same way that sleep deprivation, chronic stress, or physical illness impairs performance. The most productive, focused, emotionally regulated version of yourself is not available to you when your nervous system is running a continuous threat response to perceived social isolation. You cannot meditate your way out of it. You cannot productivity hack your way around it. You cannot simply decide to feel less lonely. The biology has to be addressed at the level of biology. Fix 1. Quantity is not what heals loneliness. Quality of connection is. Research consistently shows that the biological effects of loneliness are driven by the perceived quality of social connection, not the quantity. You can be surrounded by people and biologically lonely. You can have 1 or 2 genuinely meaningful relationships and have your threat response fully regulated. The brain's social safety system is not counting interactions. It is evaluating depth, authenticity, and felt understanding. 1 real conversation per day, where you feel genuinely seen and heard, does more for your cortisol curve and your reward system than hours of superficial social contact. Start there. 1 real conversation. Not a message, not a reaction. A conversation where someone has your full attention and you have theirs. Fix 2. Physical co-presence activates biology that digital connection cannot. Your nervous system has specific receptors, oxytocin pathways, vagal tone mechanisms, that respond to physical proximity and touch in ways that video calls and messages do not activate. Research on the vagus nerve shows that physical co-presence with another person directly regulates your autonomic nervous system, reducing cortisol, activating the parasympathetic rest state, and signaling biological safety in a way no digital medium fully replicates. Even brief, low-stakes physical contact, a handshake, a shared meal, sitting in proximity to another person, activates systems that digital interaction cannot reach. Fix 3. Contribution reduces loneliness faster than consumption. One of the most consistent findings in loneliness research is that acts of contribution, helping, teaching, creating for others, volunteering, reduce the biological markers of loneliness more effectively than passive social consumption. The mechanism is that contribution activates the brain's sense of social utility, the feeling of mattering to others, which directly downregulates the threat response driving the loneliness biology. You do not need more social events. You need more moments where another person genuinely needs something that you can provide. The research on loneliness is not trying to tell you to be more social. It is telling you something far more important, that your mind, your body, and your connections to other people are not separate systems. They are one system. And when the social layer of that system breaks down, everything else degrades with it. Your sleep, your cortisol, your dopamine, your immune function, your cognitive performance, your ability to feel like anything is worth doing. You are not a productivity machine that occasionally needs people. You are a social organism whose entire biological infrastructure was built around connection. When that connection is absent, your biology treats it as an emergency, and it will keep treating it as an emergency until you address it at the level it is operating at. 1 real conversation, physical presence, contribution over consumption. The system responds faster than most people expect, because it was always waiting for the signal that the threat had passed. Which of the 3 fixes are you starting with? Quality conversation, physical presence, or contribution? Drop it below. I read every single one. If you're not here to stay average, subscribe. And if you want to understand the next piece of this system, what your gut is sending to your brain that affects every one of these biological pathways, that video is right here. I'll see you there.